Welcome to CX&Chill, the real, raw customer experience podcast by Exo Studios, the creative arm of XtendApps. Today, get ready for an in-depth convo with hosts Sean McCreery and Chris Venezia, the visionary CEO of ProofPilot. Join us as they delve into Chris's remarkable career journey, the invaluable lessons learned through hands-on experiences, the energy that stems from a well-deserved team victory, and tales with Tom Cruise impersonators. CX&Chill starts now.
Live, we're going. Exciting. Hey guys, Sean McCreery here. I am doing another episode of CX&Chill. I am very excited today because I am with my good friend, Chris Venezia.
How are we doing, Sean?
Pretty good. I feel like, we've been talking about this podcast for a while, but it's taken a while to actually happen.
The build up has been real. So let's see if we deliver.
I think the pressure's pretty high. I'm a little nervous, to be honest. But Chris, let's start I think how we start all these and so who are you? What do you do?
Well, first, can we start with the fact that I appreciate that you wore, some clothing today? That's a good start.
I put some sleeves on today, even though, to be fair to me, we're still in Vegas and it's about 100 degrees. So.
Those are high shorts, though. So
you gotta stick with the 5 inch. Okay. 5 inches.
5-inch shorts. Cool.
5 inches in the move. It's going from 7 inches to 5 inches now. So usually, and then there's some swimsuits that are 4.
Usually you want to increase, but that's fine. We'll take it. So who am I? Chris Venezia, currently the CEO of a company called ProofPilot in the pharmaceutical technology space. Sean and I obviously have known each other for many years. I think it's almost 10 by counts.
Is it 10?
Just about 2014-ish.
Yeah.
2015-ish, give or take. We're getting there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I feel like we've become better friends since we stopped working together.
100%.
And not seeing
1,000%. Yeah.
It's weird. It's
distance has worked well for us.
It's a long distance relationship that's really worked out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So you're at ProofPilot now.
Yes.
I think your story is pretty cool because, so just so everyone knows, Chris was actually sort of the one that changed my career. He was sort of my first manager that empowered me and gave me a lot of responsibility, and I think sort of changed actually the direction of my career. So I'm very excited to talk to Chris about his journey and everything that he's done. But so we were at Thomson Reuters, we were working together, and then we started doing the whole name change game, and I think we had a few different jerseys that we wore.
Sure.
But at Thomson Reuters, what were you doing there?
Yeah, so Thomson Reuters, I came there via acquisition. Like a lot of companies get to Thomson Reuters. I worked at a small group at Deloitte, which is unusual for Deloitte to send an acquisition to Thomson Reuters' way. My whole career has been in the pharma technology space, give or take, a little bit in consumer tech as well. During my time at Thomson Reuters, I ran a sales organization across North America and then eventually globally. And then Sean ran our nonprofit and government division. And if I remember, the first time I met you was at a sales kickoff in, I think, Orlando, I want to say.
I think it was Orlando.
Orlando? Yeah. Okay. And I remember the moment because it was pretty funny. One, you were wearing full suit outside in Orlando.
Oof.
Very nice suit as well. I think it was a Canali suit. And you saw my group that was presenting, and we got a room, I remember. And your group at that time did not get a room to present.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this big, tall, handsome gentleman in a nice suit screaming, "What the hell? How does this department get a room, but I don't?" And that was my introduction to Sean.
I realized, the teams that really made money got rooms.
That's basically
that was a learning, for me.
Yeah. And we had an awesome leader that came on board that both Sean and I are still really close with, Ramsey Hashem.
Mr. Hashem.
He thought putting the two of us together would be fun, and we had a fantastic run for a while, I would say.
For a little bit. And then I think what's actually really cool about this, and because it's a story that I tell a lot of our employees at our company right now, is that, that moment, when my career changed and I had real responsibility, more or less, I'm like, hey, here's my strategy. This is my idea. It's new and it's different. It's sort of outside what the role would typically require or sort of allow. And more or less, I had Chris and our friend, Mr. Ramsey Hashem, that more or less empowered me, enabled me. I think for me, though, a big part of it was and I tell my employees this is, you need to know what you want to do, right? You need to know what the strategy is. If you get it's one thing to get an opportunity. It's another thing to actually know what to do with the opportunity. Right. And I think what was cool is I had a general idea of what to do, but then I had the leaders that trusted me enough to give me that opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately like that moment and like knowing what to do in that moment was what changed my career. So
Yeah.
very grateful to Mr. Hashem and Mr. Venezia for
Yeah.
that. So
But you had the expertise, and I think my group at the time, and we were a small team that went from 8 people to 65 in a 2 year period, and Sean and his team were a big part of that. We had some really interesting approaches, and work ethic was number one, and very old school boiler room based in terms of our go to market and sales metrics heavy. But Sean and his team really brought the expertise, and similar to you, I always look at that as an interesting way in which my career developed. In that, there's work ethic that is, table stakes that you have to just kind of
yeah.
do day to day. But, bringing in the relevant expertise and know how in the industry, when you marry those two together, anything is possible to accomplish.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think like in terms of like people empowerment, which is again just a huge
Yeah.
theme for our industry and our space. Like, I mean, I think with that team and sort of that time, like I sort of recognized and realized the importance of culture, right? And I think everyone talks about it. Like you were also pushing me hard, going, "Hey, like when I was living in Boston, you're like, go to the Boston office, go to the office." He's like, and you're like, "Hey, like I know it kind of sounds stupid, but just go there, see what happens, spend time with some of the people on the team." And like Mr. Hashem was obviously one of those people in the
Yeah.
office, and I mean the impact of being together, with the right people, like kind of we're very like-minded individuals. We want to achieve the same thing.
Yeah.
Man, it just creates this awesome culture where everyone sort of wants to work harder for one another.
Totally.
And I mean, that's where you're successful.
Totally.
That's when things work. So
Yeah.
I learned, I think for me, like a lot of the principles of like how we built, our company Extend Ops was very much based on sort of the things that I learned during that period of time.
Yeah.
But I guess the other part that's really cool about like the story here is that about a year and a half into working with Chris, one of my customers approached me and offered me a pretty awesome opportunity to, be I think the COO at the organization. And so obviously a huge, career move for me. Awesome. And I remember calling Chris and it's never fun when you go and call like, your manager to go, "Hey, like I'm leaving, or I found an interesting opportunity." And like, I mean, the first thing Chris said is like, "Dude, like you have to take it, and like let's figure out how to like do this right and transition it the right way for you." But it was all about like him being stoked for me and like my journey and getting to like where I wanted to go. So like to me, like that's good leadership. And like that's what I try to tell a lot of like really all of our employees. It's not necessarily like you look at what you want to do in your career, even just 5 years out. What are you going to do, and where do you
Yeah.
want to go? And I don't know. Like, I think to me, like it doesn't necessarily have to be with me, that adventure. It doesn't have to be with the company, but it's helping people get to where they want to go, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So
Culture, a lot of people have different definitions of what culture is. I think at the very beginning of it, it's when you start to work with somebody and you go through the interview process. You know, can you vibe with that person? Do you have an invested interest in their career? Can you guys have a great relationship together? And if you have those as kind of the baseline, and it doesn't have to be big stuff, just those small little pieces, you could go an incredibly long way because you start believing in investing in the person, not
Yeah.
necessarily the day-to-day job role. And when you invest in the person, inevitably, that they're going to get better opportunities, whether it's internally or externally. And if you're committed to that individual, why would you not root for them? Everyone's success is your success, right? As
Yeah.
as people do well in their careers, it only is a better reflection on the person that kind of worked with them, mentored them, so on and so forth. So awesome for me to see kind of what you've accomplished, and obviously Extend Ops is the sky's the limit there, which is amazing.
It's a lot of fun, but I think it's again like what's cool too is that I think when you do that transition from like a company,
Yeah.
like it was, I mean, we could not have left on better terms, and our relationship got better, as sort of our journeys, went our separate directions. But I think we found ways to stay integrated and continue to work together and collaborate, which I thought was really
What
cool.
percentage of the reason why you left the Thomson Reuters corporate way was because you wanted to wear tank tops and shorts?
Oof. I mean,
70?
I didn't realize it right away.
Okay, yeah.
Like, because I still was like, I was in Boston at the time. The role I took after I was in Cambridge, so I was still like, I wanted to be like that kind of cool consultant, wear designer, like, dress clothes.
Yep.
But it's just, I don't know. For me, it's like I kind of got to a point. I think the East Coast summers kind of killed it. It's like, man, like this is really uncomfortable. Like this is not what I want to do anymore. So, I mean, I think part of it too is like just like being yourself. And I think I mean, honestly, I think COVID, everyone working from home, you sort of like it's your personal style becomes more acceptable in the business setting, I think.
I would have liked to seen this look going into like Children's Hospital of Philadelphia as an example to see if we could have, pulled off some of the different transactions
Yeah, I
that we
mean,
did.
I'm wearing bracelets
Yeah,
now. I mean,
I mean,
there's even, I mean, and I had a necklace tan the other trip
wow,
I went on. So
that's strong.
I almost took a picture of it. I'm like, I don't know who I
When
really
you
showed that to.
transition from bracelet to bracelets, it's another level.
Yeah, when you start stacking bracelets,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
like I ordered an amulet for a necklace the other day. So
That's
I mean, which is tough to. It's tough to hear.
the amulet. Wow, it's not really going, not really to say there.
So all right. So we talked about like our Thomson Reuters time
Mhm.
together. So and then, well, I think what's cool, like with both of us actually in our stories, right, is we started doing the whole big company thing. We're doing the whole big company thing, dealing with sort of all the corporate stuff, politics, and all the things that I think maybe make it harder for there to be as much innovation at sort of the pace you want it to happen at. So we both kind of dipped our feet into the whole startup world, right? And I think what's cool is like, I mean, I'd love to hear more about, when you transitioned from like a big company like a Thomson Reuters to a startup, like, what was sort of like the driving force there? Like, why'd you do that?
Yeah, I think when anyone who has that entrepreneurial bug or spirit in them, when they're working at a big company, inevitably they get stifled, whether it's creativity or just growth into other areas. And the only way to kind of scratch that is to go to a small organization where you could be a bigger fish in a small pond. And when I made the transition from large organization to startup a small organization, it was really because I felt like I wanted a little bit more control of the process. I wanted to be more involved. I felt like I had a good pulse of customers and can understand customer needs relatively quickly. And no better place to do it where you have direct impact on whatever product or service you're selling. So that was a big transition and a driving force there. But what they don't tell you is what you lose when you don't have the big infrastructure around
Oof,
you, right?
yeah.
The support, um, the process, all the different operations that you kind of take for granted that need to be created from scratch. And it takes a couple years to understand that that's okay, that doesn't exist, and
Hmm.
your job is really to build infrastructure.
Yep.
I think that's the one thing that gets hidden in the glitziness of moving to a startup is that you have to kind of do a lot of the dirty work of
Yeah.
the things that nobody sees. Everyone gets the opportunity to see the marketing and all the sales pitches and all that, but healthcare benefits and uh, operations for the organization overall, financials, all those things that again are the unseen parts to the job. Those become overwhelming and challenging, but yeah, again, back to building the right team around you, getting the right
Yep.
culture, getting the right people. Everybody enjoys that process of
I think like
building.
for me, it's perfect's the enemy of good. And
Totally.
and it's like when you sort of kind of realize at a certain point, it's like, yo, like I'm not gonna have anywhere close to the infrastructure. But the thing is, like, there's certain things you need more than others. And it's just sort of an exercise of ruthless prioritization, going, hey, like these are the like this infrastructure can be this good. I know I can make it better, but that's not worth my time.
Yeah.
And sort of, I think learning how to do that prioritization on the infrastructure front, I think allows you to, do things at the pace that you want to, go out without wasting time on unnecessary
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So you went to what? You were at Signals, right?
Worked at a company called Signals Analytics. It was an Israeli startup. We got there, and the organization was making a big pivot from being historically a service-based business to become more SaaS-oriented, tech-enabled. And what's interesting when you walk into an organization like that, similar, right, where they had a lot of process built already on how do you take people and build service. How do you transition that into a technology environment, which brings in all other sorts of problems and challenges? We were doing it at the speed of light, right? We had to create infrastructure, we had to create new product, and with every startup, you only have a certain amount of runway
Yeah.
before you run out of time. And we were a series. I want to say Series C. It was probably like a Series Q with the amount of investments and time we had there.
Oh wow.
But we had pivoted a few times. We can say successful exit there. Company was acquired by an organization known as Kenshu. It's now rebranded as an organization called Sky. But they were doing some really interesting things in the consumer space and as well as in pharma doing predictive analytics, taking social media data, taking reviews, and trying to do trend prediction, which was pretty cool. However, again, transitioning from service to product, how do you productize that
Yeah.
approach? What's a product people are going to use? How do you sell it?
I
All
assume when
those
you
things
joined the
coming
company,
together.
it was already a product, right?
Sure, yeah,
That's what you were
like
told.
every startup,
Yeah.
it looked fantastic, and
Yeah.
then you get under the hood and you start realizing, it's my job to
So
fix some of this
kind of
stuff.
in the services space right now, even though I thought I was in more of a product like tech space. So.
Totally, yeah. So that's always fun.
So wait, so it's an Israeli-based company. So like,
Correct.
were you would you go to Israel at all?
I spent about 2 years going to Israel every 6 weeks.
Real 6 weeks.
Yeah, so I went,
Wow.
basically, 2 times a quarter. Um, what they don't tell you on those types of trips and that type of experience is the impact it's going to have on you culturally and personally. Everyone always looks at the travel. Well, you have two ways to look at travel, right? Like there's the fun part of it, you're going to new places, etc. And there's the challenging part if you have a family, lifestyle changes there. But what I would say is the part that resonated most with me in looking back on it is Israel in particular is a very different country. Like, everyone thinks a certain thing about Middle East type area. Uh, First thing that I noticed when I landed was palm trees, and I didn't think about that. And the beach and the unbelievable experience there. But it's such a close knit community. You develop some really cool and interesting relationships there that I still have today. But working at time zone differences like that
Oof.
is crazy.
It's tough.
11-hour flight to get back and forth. Work week is different, right? They're off on Fridays, work on Sundays. So all of a sudden, very
Yeah, that
quickly,
was right. Yeah.
you have a 6-day work week, pretty fast. And you don't even realize it. But overall, what I would say is it, taught me a lot of how to prioritize, um, managing your time, really starting to distill an organization down to who's building product and who's selling product and try
Yeah.
to simplify it as much as possible. But yeah, the team there was unbelievable, right? To go from a team of 70 plus consultants
Yeah.
to 15 developers, and to
Mhm.
try to do that overnight while trying to find product market fit, while selling something that is different in industry, while building a team in an office here in the States. Startups move incredibly fast and try to do a lot of things simultaneously, which is always fun.
Yeah, what's funny is I think it was a year ago, like around this time. We were actually here in Vegas. I
Yep.
remember we were, I think, just walking to Caesars at the time, and we were sort of talking just strategy. I think I was asking you for some advice, and I think you sort of shared, some of your experience, with me at Signals, right?
Yep.
Like, because you were running commercial there when you joined, right? You're the chief commercial
Yep.
officer when you joined that company, and I think you were more or less, you had some strategic kind of, I think, decisions to make as to where you took the business commercially, where it's like, hey, am I going to focus just, on, this vertical, or am I going to focus on maybe these two?
Yeah.
Right. And I think, I mean, do you remember that
So
conversation? we
yeah,
had?
yeah.
Like, I mean, can you share it? Cause I thought that was like, to me, it
Yeah.
was really, sage advice and like helped me make some decisions as to like, hey, like, do I double down on what's working or do I take like this quick expansion opportunity?
Yeah, the first thing when you get an opportunity to run a show, right, to be a manager or run a group or a department, whatever the case is you think of all the opportunities and possibilities, right? And usually, if you're ambitious, you're thinking of 50 different things. I could sell this product, I could do this offering, I could do all these different things. And the truth to success is being really good, if not great, at just one thing
Yeah.
and nailing that.
Yeah.
And it's very, 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 very hard to not fall to the temptation of doing many different things simultaneously.
Yep.
But you end up doing 100 different things that give your little bit of attention on each of those. And unfortunately, the results are usually not that great because you're not heavily invested. So, anyone that I speak to that's in a situation, I give that advice. I still today fall victim to that. Right, my company ProofPilot has lots of different products and services that we're touching, and
Yep.
all the time we talk about how we're probably doing a little too much or we should focus on this area and so on and so forth. But that is unbelievable advice, and that's something that I just learned through experience and something that most people will probably relate to.
Yeah, last week had a really good conversation with someone I really respect, and I think a quote he had was, strategy is all about what you don't do.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's just perfectly said because I mean, especially like when you're doing a startup, you're trying to make it work. I mean, time's not on your side.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of being smart with that, what you use your team's time to
Yeah.
do.
Totally.
And I mean, but like knowing what to do and when to do it, sort of an art, right? You have to really have, and I think that's what makes you such a great leader. Is that I think having that commercial understanding, but that appreciation for what I mean, operationally needs to happen to execute on what you're
Yeah.
pitching
Totally.
commercially is, I think, seeing it from both those perspectives is interesting. And I think what I've learned too, and what I've seen just, and personally starting it up, it's like, you and I both have like commercial backgrounds.
Yeah.
We were sales dudes. And I think like, as you start, obviously, you run your own show, like, you got to make sure that what you're selling is actually deliverable,
Sure.
right? And it
Yeah.
actually happens, but also is scalable, it's profitable, all of those different things. So you really have to almost like, I remember like with this business, like I had like the first 2 years, I didn't focus on selling. I
Yeah.
just focused on like, hey, how do I build the best product possible? Knowing that like, I had strategies in place to like help expand commercially, but I mean, it was all about making sure we had a superior product and we could actually deliver it in a scalable fashion.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, for you, like looking at you and like, I mean, I think what's always been what I really like respected about you is that, you understand like commercially what needs to happen, but you also know like what you need to do in terms of personnel infrastructure to actually get it done.
Well, the personnel part's the hard one because what you hate doing is when you build up so much internal momentum and everyone's excited about the company and all the possibilities, is you got to start saying no to people.
Yep.
Right. And what you don't want to do is kill that spirit by telling people, no, that's not a good idea or investment of time or energy or things like that. But you have to have that North Star. If you don't have a North Star and everyone's rowing in the same direction, you end up exactly in the same spot that we were chatting earlier about, that, you're doing too many things, all of them kind of, not as well as you'd like. And there's only so much time in a day to give energy and effort towards.
Yeah, it's the truth, man. So, all right. So coming back to it. So, all right, we're at Signals,
Yeah.
right? And now, it sounds like successful exit there. Everyone, leaves happy. I assume that's usually
Some people,
Yeah,
some people,
some people
honest-
happier
some
than
more,
others.
yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
So, all right. So then after that,
Yeah.
so where'd you go?
Yeah. So, funny enough, and one thing that's always important as you, go about in your career, you know, obviously try your best to, as you leave organizations and people you work with, to be open and have great communication and try never to burn bridges. And the reason why is, for the most part, industry and business overall is, small. Everyone talks, everyone knows. An opportunity presented itself with a company called TrialScope, and I happen to know the chief strategy officer there. I worked with him way back when I worked at Deloitte. We happened to just share an office, and we were friendly. And a chief revenue officer position opened up at TrialScope, and I jumped on it and joined the organization. And they've been through a couple of different iterations. They came to market many years ago as a company called PharmaCM, with a very innovative product in the pharma regulatory space. And the company, grew fairly quickly, but then sort of plateaued with the personas they were going after and the use case. And they were starting to think differently about, hey, we have access to lots of different clinical trial data. We have lots of premier customers, some of the biggest pharma companies in the world, these big installs. And how do we repurpose, that engagement into other go to markets? And that's what I was tasked with doing. And we took what was a fairly stale growth company, and accelerated growth in a very short period of time. It was, I want to say about a 10 to $12 million company within 2 years, probably about 35 to 40 million. And we did that just by thinking very differently, by the way they already had their engagements and their relationships, looking at the personas that surrounded that and what would be value to them, right? And what could we offer that was unique and different, and really listening to customers. And we had a really good success story there as well.
So pretty much, it's when they hired you when all this stuff started to happen.
No, I mean, I can't take too much credit. I mean, we had an awesome team. We found all the right people at the right time. We had commitment from a board that wanted to make things happen. That's one of the things, from a leadership standpoint that goes under the radar, is you have to have the right people that want to invest and see the idea is over here, but where you are today. So you got to have a lot of believers. And
How is that like? So, I mean, it's one of the things that we're going through as a company right now is, we're sort of, I think, deciding who we want to work with from
Sure.
an investment standpoint. And I think, who you partner with on that front It's kind of important because
Totally.
that's probably who's going to be sitting on your board and stuff like that. But you're already, working with the board and sort of navigating those relationships and managing expectations. Like what's that like?
Oh, I got to be careful here. I might have a
Yeah.
board member that listens to this. I think the biggest thing is, first off, obviously, right? If you have the ability to put together your own board and investors, pick people you want to work with, pick people that believe in you, that believe in the industry. One thing that I get a lot of advice from one of my mentors, Jeff Kozloff, is give your board
Great
some,
guy.
give your board some homework, right? Your board has put up money, and investors have put up money to be successful. So they want to make this a success, right? And it's not just the money that they could necessarily bring to make the organization successful. It's their connections, it's their know-how, it's their network of people for hires, right? If you have a key hire you want, first people you should go to use your board.
Yep.
Hey, do you know someone that could be a
Yep.
head of tech or a head of operations or
Yep.
things like that? So, having that transparency and knowing that they are actually a key member of the company and not someone that writes a check, huge game changer in being able to grow the company.
Yep. Define your ask, right?
For sure.
Make it easy for them to participate.
Yes.
And they may not know, they don't know your business as well as you do. You know what you need and how you can, maybe leverage those resources.
And it's hard because a lot of that is when you're reporting back on your quarterly or whatever cadence you have, you want to be able to go in there and just tell constant success stories, right?
Sure.
Because that's your boss. But the reality is, as a leader in an organization, it's really your job to expose all the problems,
Yep.
right? And ask for help that's needed. And it's on them to help you, right? It's a
Yep.
collaborative effort. It's a teamwork that needs to get the organization to the next level.
So it's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of, I don't know, it's a major theme, for our industry here on like
Yeah.
the CX front, but it's expectation management,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I think when you truly know what's going on, like, you know how to more or less, you should know how to articulate that, right? As to like, hey, this is what's happening. This is current state. This is my strategy. And this is how current state's going to change the future state, right?
Yeah.
And being able to like clearly articulate that, but also be in front of it,
Yeah.
I think, and be very self-aware to me is kind of everything. And whether it's, managing a board or,
Yeah.
maybe not managing it, but working with the board,
Sure.
to even just, working with
No,
your
it's
own
managing.
organization.
You're definitely managing them for sure. But that's, if you have the North Star that where the organization needs to be, the product, the fit, you don't have to have all the answers of how to do an implementation or how to operationalize it. But at least if you have the idea and everyone's rowing in the same direction towards that idea, uh, it's much easier to ask, and it becomes more clear to ask, what those asks are
Yeah.
essentially, right? That becomes the challenge is, I get that question a lot, which is like, how can we help you? And I don't necessarily have an answer for that
Yeah.
this second, right? Outside of get me more leads or, get me this or give me more money or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But, as you start to establish, the different operational processes, your asks become a little bit more clearer. So, getting into the details is key on that.
So what about like vision, right? And like, where you're taking the business, right? And like vision and brand and all that stuff. Cause I mean, for me, as you can tell, like
Sure. Yeah.
I'm a little obsessed with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, how important is that, like, working with the board or just, working with your employees and just kind of, I think, making sure that they're aligned with, I think, where you want to take the business?
I think it's probably everything, right? And the reason why is people, at least in this day and age, people join companies and there's lots of options, right?
Mhm.
Because they want to be part of something, right? Outside of the pay and the boss and all that, they look at the organization. Everyone goes to the company's website. Everyone looks on Glassdoor. Everyone looks at all the different pieces, and the experience and the feeling they get from working at that organization, is impactful to their lives, right? We spend a lot of our time, if not most of it, with our day-to-day jobs, and most even more so than family in many instances. So you want to be a part of something that you believe in, that you're proud to be part of, and let's face it, like you want to be part of a brand that's cool and fun, and you want to be able to tell people
Definitely
that I'm
cool.
part of something, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's everything.
Yeah. It's like when you tell your buddies, it's like, yeah, I work here. Right.
Yeah.
It's like people check out, like, wow, it's a pretty cool
Cool.
spot.
Yeah.
Like, I can see why you work there.
Yeah,
And I think
100%.
people are, people like kind of are proud to wear the jersey, right? Proud to be part of the team. I think I don't know, you sort of create this work ethic. People just care,
Yeah.
right? Like they're staying up late, to me, that's like the most inspiring part of all this. Like getting to like the state that we're in right now and having a ton of really talented people that are also self-starters, right? They're given, and if you're clear on vision, right? And you're clear on where you want to go, and those teams are clear on what they need to do, man, like just step back and let them create, let them do what they need to do. But I mean, you have to be clear on that vision so that, because as it grows and as it scale, everyone sort of has to be working together.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part, is like getting everyone to sort of collaborate. Everyone's like, break down the silos and stuff like that. And I mean, like, and I think what's cool is like in building a company and starting things up, like you have a opportunity to not create silos from the beginning. Now they kind of naturally occur.
Right.
But I mean, I think there's ways that you can get in front of it and really, I think, enable collaboration.
Yeah, I don't believe in like the work-life balance argument, right? Because I don't think a lot of what I do is work,
Yeah.
right? Like this is my life. This is how I go about it. I
Yeah.
enjoy, and a lot of the people I surround myself with are part of that same sort of culture and belief in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And those that have worked with me before and will hopefully work with me in the future, have that same, opinion and feeling of it. And I think that's a big change. And similar to you, right? If I type a message on, Slack or Teams and it's 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
it sounds terrible. I don't think about, oh, it's 11 o'clock. Something came up and I threw a message out there.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone that responds in my organization or organizations that I've worked with before has the same feeling either, right? They don't look at it and be like, oh my God, it's 11. Why is somebody asking this question? It's because we're all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
We all have a common belief. We're not looking at the clock to punch in and out, right? We're trying to accomplish some really, big goals.
But it's because of the culture you create.
Correct.
Too,
yeah.
Right. I mean, because I remember, man, like early days, and I think just the business environment's fundamentally changed. But I remember, like, I get an email from, like, when I first started working like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I get an email from my manager or someone like that, even if it was at 11 or like 12 o'clock. I'm like, shit, like I need to respond to this. Like I need to get on it. Like I'm thinking about that. Like I need to do it. And I mean, I think what's cool is you build the right team, you create the right culture. Like, and you're literally just putting something there at 11 p.m. because like, wow, it's a great idea. I need to put it out there and maybe we can action that tomorrow. But people know, right? There's no pressure to respond right away. Like, dude, it's 11. Like, I hope you're sleeping right now.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, it's, I think it really does come down to like the environment you really create for your workforce. And I think the leaders that sort of set the tone for the organization.
Yeah. The response time you get from something internally really does tell you whether or not that person's committed to the cause and is part of the culture, right? I think we've all had employees before or people we've worked with that you have to send multiple messages on the same topic and follow up on lots of different, things. And, whether it's an organizational skill or whether it's they got stuff going on, I think end of the day, usually they're not as bought in as you'd like them to be bought for whatever reason.
Totally.
And that goes down to the culture fit more than anything.
I want to like one of the things you just said, you brought up work-life balance, right?
Yep.
And how you sort of have a different perspective there. So I have to come back to that.
Sure.
And, I know your family pretty well, too.
Sure.
You know mine.
Sure.
So, I mean, in doing startups now, right? I mean, and now you're the CEO, of ProofPilot, right? It is your show right now. Like,
so they say.
Yeah. So they say. I mean, I hear once you get investors, that kind of changes.
Definitely.
And, you have bosses and people that help direct the show.
They do.
So, but how do you navigate things on the personal front? Like, like having that, like, different perspective, right? And what work-life balance should be. And obviously since like, I think all the changes over the last few years, like how do you like manage that?
So I have 2 young children. And I think as you mentioned before, the idea about, job and what your day-to-day is totally changed. And you get 2 sort of different opinions. You have the people that shut their computer at a certain period of time and they spend family time and all that stuff. And, I absolutely do that occasionally. But I would say the other part to this is that I think is really important is I think at an early age, I'm helping for my children to understand, what work ethic is.
Yeah.
And, while it's not the same work of yesteryear in a coal mine or wherever the case may be, what my son and daughter are seeing is, hey, if you want stuff and they want
they want
PS5
stuff,
and Switch and everything. When they want stuff, there comes a work that needs to be done beforehand. And I think it's important to show that, at a very early age. So, I pride myself in not missing baseball games and not missing ballets and all those pieces. But at the same end,
I heard you get pretty involved in the baseball games. Actually,
it depends on how the umpires act.
Yeah, I mean, what happened like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, if you're going to be an umpire, all right, don't commit to it if you're not going to actually call balls and strikes appropriately. All right. A ball can't bounce and then end up in the catcher's glove and you call it a strike. That's just not.
Wait, so what'd you do?
I may or may not have given the umpire my opinion on his, the way he called the game. and he may or not have told me I don't have to be at the game.
So he could this, I mean, I assume you're sitting with all the other parents. It was Caroline there, your wife?
Of course she was there.
Oh,
yeah.
She was pleased.
She was really impressed with the way I handled the situation.
So you have all the other kids' parents. Wait, and how old is your son?
I want to go. Yeah. So my son is 9. So this is a 10U baseball. So I just want to go on record as saying I did get a lot of, pats on the back from other parents.
You did the dirty work for the rest.
Yeah, I like to think of myself.
Wait, so what exactly? All right, so it sounds like questionable calls from the umpire.
Questionable calls from the umpire.
How many people are we talking in the stands?
Maybe 30. Nah, maybe 40 or 50.
30, 40. Wow.
Well, you got 2 parents, a kid. You have 40 kids.
Weekend game.
25 kids.
Weekend game.
Yeah.
So you got the whole
jam
crew
packed.
out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people around. Yeah.
So bad call. So what happens next?
No, I politely politely told the umpire, hey, that was not a great call.
So you're saying things under your breath, essentially.
I may or may not have said something fairly loud near him for him to hear me, but not necessarily hear me. But boy, umpires are confrontational.
So you
nowadays.
got in your face.
Got in the face. We had a discussion. Yeah, and this is life. This is what you're dealing with.
So I
man.
assume the game's stopped at this point.
No. We didn't. It wasn't that.
But I mean, how he's
in
up
between?
in the game.
It's in between innings. We're trying. We're changing over, and
Were you on the field?
But there was a fence between us.
Oh, God.
He looked
so
like he may or may not have wanted to climb that fence. That was
near the backstop.
This was near the backstop. We're really painting a picture here. Yeah, really backstop.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is the highlight of my weekend. Like 2 weeks ago.
Any parent who has a kid in any sport, whether they have said something or wanted to say something, for sure has gotten that feeling of like, what the hell? That's a terrible call. What are you doing? Etc.
That's fair.
Yeah, this is just normal stuff.
That's fair. Like I would have probably.
We'll see if it's normal on some of the comments on LinkedIn potentially.
No, I think the parent I don't know, someone's got to say something.
Yeah, I mean everyone feels it. Maybe not everyone says it.
I pride myself. My styles. I like to say what other people think.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people are they don't want to like create the controversy and stuff like that. But I'm like, who cares? Like, just rip the Band-Aid off, see what happens.
Yeah,
everyone's thinking it. So
don't be a 10U baseball.
So I mean, did the calls improve at least?
I distanced myself from the rest of the game after that. So could have improved.
Not
unsure.
in a position to really answer that question.
Not 100% sure.
All right. So coming back to it all, like, because I think we're sort of telling your story, right?
Sure.
Going from big company startup, right? So now, I mean, I don't know if we close the loop on Trial Scope.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that was like you're sort of like, I mean, that was really when you were involved with like truly helping sell a company.
Yeah, strategy on what the growth was going to look like, who are the potential buyers, why would that fit well in their portfolio.
You found the buyer.
I found the buyer, knew
That's
the buyer.
That's pretty cool. Like you actually like how do you sort of like figure that out?
Just looking at, obviously being within this industry for a number of years, kind of identifying where this would fit, why it would make sense. And a lot of this is telling the story for the potential acquire, right? Yeah. And why it made sense for them and how it could help disrupt where their competitors are and things like that. So we identified a couple buyers that made sense. We presented it to those organizations, one in particular which was Informa, which is i.e. Sightline, which is now Norstella.
Wow, that's confusing.
Yeah, exactly. They saw this as a really awesome opportunity to jumpstart a regulatory practice, disrupt one of their competitors they were up against. There was a gap.
But you, did you help sort of sell that to them in terms of like, hey, if you do this, like this is what's going to happen, or like how did that could be a good fit?
At some point, the financials of the company are what they are. Where the organization is today is what it is. But when you're going through that process, what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell first and foremost the team and the expertise that are there. So myself, others that were there, not just me, obviously. And then what this can do for their business. So you have to paint that picture, right? So you have to know their portfolio. You have to know their product offering. You have to know their customer. Yeah. You have to identify what the expansion plan would be. You have to make it easy for the implementation of that. You have to know the sales force that's going to go after it. Why is it going to be easy for the sales force to quickly be able to say?
Not a lot of things.
No, but these are all But when you're doing, a pretty sizable acquisition,
Yeah.
these are important things that you need to do and are expected.
How
So
how long does that process take?
that process. So I mean, they knew the organization was going to be acquired for a bit. Obviously, every company goes through that internally.
Yeah.
The due diligence process took about 2.5 to 3 months. From initial interest. I mean, there's a lot of dating, obviously, at the beginning that you go through, and then once there's some interest, then you start to
What's the
expedite that.
dating look like? Are you using apps and stuff?
there's Tinder for companies. You
Yeah.
just swipe right and left.
Yeah.
But no, the dating process is fun, right? Because it's just like a sales pitch, except it's like a very different level.
Yeah.
And you're doing a little bit of guessing on why you think it would make sense, and you have to, kind of sell it in a lot of those different ways.
That's crazy, man. I mean, I have a ton more questions,
Yeah.
but I'm conscious of, not taking too much of
No,
your
it's
time.
fine.
So all right, so you had it like, so wait, so like in all, like at Trial Scope, like from like the dating,
Yeah.
and like when things,
Yeah.
move past friends with benefits, I guess, like, like how long was that process to like, actually close that?
4 months to signature. About that.
Is that
About
like,
4
that
months.
sounds fast.
It is fast. But momentum is everything.
Yeah.
Right. So when you get the right buyer,
Totally.
you get the right interest level, and you do, which is like a very sales 101 thing, right? You transfer ownership, right?
Yeah.
You get that person as excited as you are about the potential deal, about bringing the company on board. Um, you know, it's like snowball rolling down a hill, right? It just
Yeah.
increases speed and size.
Man, it's so momentum is literally,
Huge.
it's
Yeah.
it's currency. It's the most in a startup like world. Like momentum is your most valuable thing.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I know you guys are going through this right now. We're going through this at ProofPilot, but you get 1 or 2 wins,
Yeah.
and those turn into 20 overnight. And
Yeah.
it's those 1 or 2, obviously, we all know are the hardest. And then, it slowly becomes easier.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, whatever it is, any like part of the business, right? I mean, just like going to commercial, right? Like logos get logos.
Yeah.
Get a few logos, right? Start stacking them a little bit, build that credibility.
Charles Barkley says when you win an NBA championship, the next year you become 30% better automatically, just because you have the confidence.
Yeah.
And I think 100% could be applied to any business. When you win your first big deal or your
Yeah.
first new product deal, whatever the case is, you instantly become better on your next go around.
Yeah.
And you start to think about all the presentations and customers you met with 6 months earlier, and you're like, oh, if I knew what I knew now,
Yeah.
those are all wins. And
I mean,
that's the
honestly,
part.
like, I mean, this is kind of a stupid story, but I tell a lot of stupid stories. But I played water polo in college. Like that was, a big deal for me. But I like, for me, like I like to score goals. Like, I mean,
Sure.
I guess who doesn't?
Sure.
But like the way in which I scored goals was I was closer to the cage.
Yeah.
But like I remember, I'll never forget this. Like my freshman year, like I took an outside shot, which is not what I typically did, but I did it and it went in. And I mean, just seeing that ball go in, like I'm like, wow, I can do this. And it
Totally.
changed me as a player because I had that confidence, right?
Yeah.
And I say this to our team too a lot. Like, I mean, you want everyone in your company to play with the starters mentality, right? Because like you're coming in there and you're playing to win the game,
Yeah.
right? And you put yourself in, I think, different opportunities to gain that confidence, right? And I think a lot of people come in like, some of the people that start on the bench and they have this mentality where it's like, I just don't want to fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, because coach is going to pull me out. So they're not even like, thinking about like, I want to win the game. I want to score goals from like places I've never like, shot before.
Yeah.
They're just like, I don't want to fuck up.
Yeah.
And I think to me, like, it's a matter of creating that environment where, I mean, it's really everyone has that starter mentality, right? So they can build that confidence.
Yeah. Playing not to lose is a big transition. And I know everyone who's in business and sales, right? Like you try to use the sports related things, but they are 100% applicable.
Yeah.
Right. When you get into a customer call or you're building your organization or making a hire and you're playing to not lose, you fail every single time.
Every time.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. You got to be aggressive. You got to push.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's where you like with TrialScope, or with ProofPilot right now, like you're kind of in that push phase right now.
Yeah. We, company had been around for a little bit. It's a Series B company, got new investors last year. And with new investors, they want to do a leadership change. I had known the organization a little bit as a company that was going to be a partner type company with TrialScope, and knew the chairman, knew some board members. and it all fit together and was a really good match. But yeah, it's one thing to get the money from investors.
Yeah.
Now it's how are you going to use it, right?
Yeah.
And we did very similar to kind of how you guys are going about it at ExtendOps. We went very hard on what is our brand, what is our messaging, how do we get out there in the pharma tech, health tech space. There's a lot of companies that do kind of the same stuff with their own unique kind of take on it, but every website kind of looks the same. Every approach kind of looks the same. And I just wanted to stand out and be different, whether it was the color scheme, the logos, the messaging, our presentations, like anything we can to differentiate ourselves.
You want to make it cool, right?
100%. Yeah.
You got to make it cool.
Yeah. And I think we've had a couple events. Well, I'm about to come up to my year anniversary here at ProofPilot. We've had a couple of different events, and all of them we've come up with very different, unique, like guerrilla marketing styles, similar to how you guys are going about it. But the thing that you won't hear is you won't hear anyone's not know who ProofPilot is in the industry.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know exactly what we do,
Yeah.
and our history and things like that. But everyone can associate that brand, that go to market, and point to a couple different fun events that we had.
You just got to get people to check you out.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, who else hires a Tom Cruise impersonator to stand at their booth? I mean, come on.
I mean, the guy's actually pretty convincing.
100%.
Like, but it's such a smart strategy, just because, I mean, just think about how all of us like consume information now and like data. Like, I mean, if you're not working, or even if you are working, I guess really, like, people are on social media, right? People are on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, whatever the hell people use. And they're all checking things out. They're not telling you what they check out, right? Like, but they're looking at everything. And I think if you can kind of create a brand, right? You can do different things to kind of stand out, to be different. All you need to do is get people to open the door, right? Get them to your website, check it out, but it works, right? And you see the traffic you're driving, but like, I think it's being bold enough to take some risks, to be creative, to be a little different. And like, you bring like, a Tom Cruise impersonator to a big conference, a big scientific conference, mind you. Like, it's very different. It's risky, right? It's almost like, a little awkward at times too if it's not done right. But like, man, it's worth the risk, and it helps you stand out. So
when you scroll through LinkedIn and you look at all the companies that are out there in your space, right?
Yeah.
Every blog, every post on LinkedIn kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
Right. Send a somewhat provocative message on something that everyone's obviously thinking, but they all look and feel the same.
Totally.
Right. When you really start to think about different ways to differentiate yourself, whether it's, look, feel, design, or even obviously content, at a minimum, that's just how we all consume today. Right.
Yeah.
We all scroll through, we see a quick blurb, and we take that in and think from there. And that's what I've been all about. How do we ensure that when someone sees ProofPilot, the messaging, that they stop and they think about it, and it's something different that they haven't seen before.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, you hope you have what it takes under the hood to get it done.
That's, I would say, a year ago before I started, I don't think we were there yet.
Yeah.
I think over the last year, as the organization has matured, as we've brought in, amazing talent, as we've really focused in on, what's the North Star? What are we trying to accomplish? Why is that valuable? 100%. I think we're there today. And that's kind of the point of going from, a seed company to a Series B company and then beyond, right? You're making that natural progression. And the most important thing along the way is you're going to have believers, other organizations that will be your customer.
Yeah.
And one thing I've felt very strongly about is when you get those early adopters, they are so important, obviously, to help guide the organization from their feedback and what you need to accomplish. But more personally, like, someone took a chance on you, right? And I have one customer in particular that I've worked with now at a couple different organizations. And if she sees this, she'll know it's her. And, she's taken a chance on giving me opportunities multiple times. And, I've met her with amazing delivery, right? And also hopefully some good friendship. But the whole idea is, you want to remember those people and you want to invest back into them. So I think that's always so important if you're staying in the same industry and
just relationships in general. I mean, even like going back to like when you were talking about, your time at Trial Scope.
Yeah.
Right. And like, you went there because I think you said you knew the chief strategy officer. Right. But like, when you were at Deloitte way back when, you had no idea that was going to happen. Right. But, you make these good relationships with people. right? And like these people will resurface, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know, you're going to run into these people again. A lot of these industries aren't that big. So, how you sort of leave with different people, I think is really important because, I mean, for me, when I look back just at, what's helped me get to this point, it's some of the people that I never thought would have been part of the journey. And they end up sort of being your biggest supporters and your biggest believers. So it's really cool.
People think of that though always internally, right? You always think about don't burn a bridge when you leave one company going to another, but you never really think about it on the customer side.
No.
And the customer, like the customer I just mentioned before, right? Her name's Diane Montrose. She runs Moderna.
Yeah.
And she's been an amazing advocate for me and organizations I've worked at. But she was one of the original people that saw one of our products and services and was like, that's a really cool idea. I know it's not fully baked yet, but I'd like to invest in that.
And when you find customers that believe in you, I mean, and look, to be fair, right, you have to prove yourself to that customer. Like, and I think once you prove yourself, and like, honestly, this is sort of like our whole commercial strategy in a nutshell, where it's all about, how do you build trust with your customer as quickly as possible? How do you speed up the process of creating a mutually beneficial situation? And I think if you can do that well, and you can really deliver, it's not just like, I think, helping, like the customer do what they want to do, right? It's also like that person you're working with within the company. How do you help them win? Like, how do you help them get promoted, right? So you're helping them both at a personally, professionally, but also, you're also helping the company too.
Yeah. And but the delivery you mentioned, right? Like that's so key, right? Like, Extend Ops has now worked for me. I've been a customer of yours at now 3 different companies.
Yeah.
And as much as I love you, like if you didn't deliver, I'd have to go elsewhere. And, not only do you guys deliver, but, you deliver in spades. So I obviously continue, to work with you and use.
Well, and I'd argue too, right? Like when you I mean, even like some of our recruitment strategy right now for like strategic roles, right, is finding like, players in the industry, right? But like doers in the industry, people that are sort of like, in very, I think, involved roles operationally, and finding those people, right? And like their respective networks, right? It's just a matter of, I mean, it's what powers our whole business right now in our company. But I mean, you got to find those believers. Yeah. Like, and they're out there. Like, and I don't know, it's pretty easy to like prove that once, you do it right.
Yeah. And I think for you guys, right, as an experienced company, and for the most part, supporting customer experience, I look at some of the work that we've done together is regards to patient experience, right? And that's, a little different, and it's a weird thing to think of patients as customers. Yeah. But considering the fact that, in the US, we're allowed to advertise drugs to your patients, they essentially are customers in a lot of different ways. And I've seen, incredible amount of support and, and basically the skill sets that you guys have in hiring, customer support agents, to actually support patients that are live in clinical trials. Like, I think that's been incredible and just shows that, great talent can transition to any industry.
Oh, everywhere. I mean, I think we should do this. Like, I think this is probably a multi-part podcast because I think we covered your journey.
Sure.
We'll probably actually cut most of what I'm saying right now, guys, too. But what I'm thinking right now is what we do is I think this stuff's going to be good. There's a ton of quotes we can pull out of this and everything. I mean, we're done, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But how
Huge shout out to Brittany Kelly and Carly Carolla at FW Rentals in lovely Las Vegas, Nevada for their support in custom logo work. FW Rental provides rental and custom build-out solutions for all of your event and production needs. We love you, Brittany and Carly. Learn more at fwrental.com. That's fwrental.com. And that's our show. CX&Chill is a production of Exo Studios, the creative marketing arm of Extend Ops. With today's host, Sean McCreery. Executive producer is Sean McCreery. Producers David Spear, Clarissa Coronado, and Memo Davalos. Editors and videographers Santiago Aguirre, Alfonso Ramirez. Graphic support from Jordan Madrid, and social media guru Claudia Corona.